Yo, what's up, history buffs and curious minds? Today, we're diving into the untold stories of America's founding fathers. We know them as the giants who created a new nation, the powdered wigs, the fancy signatures, the whole shebang. But what were their lives like? Did they face struggles we never hear about in the textbooks? The drama, the contradictions, the straight up that makes history come alive? Stick around to discover some of the most surprising, dramatic, and inspiring facts about the men who changed the course of history. We're talking about the whispers behind the monuments, the stories they didn't teach you in school. Get ready to see these legendary figures in a whole new light. First up, the big dog himself, General George Washington. You know him as the stoic face on the dollar bill, the hero of the revolution, the father of this nation. But here's the thing about George. He never actually wanted to be any of that. See, Washington was a farmer at heart. He loved his land, his family, and the quiet life at Mount Vernon. So when the call came to lead the Continental Army, he hesitated. This wasn't some power-hungry dude eager to jump into the spotlight. He knew the weight of responsibility, the risk, the sacrifice. But Washington, he was a man of duty, of unwavering commitment. He took on the role of commander-in-chief, not for glory, but because it was the right thing to do. And let me tell you, leading those ragtag troops to victory, that was no easy feat. Imagine the pressure, the uncertainty, the constant threat of defeat. Washington faced it all head-on, with grit and determination. Now here's where things get complicated. Washington, the man who fought for freedom, was also a slave owner. It's a dark irony, a stain on his legacy. He inherited enslaved people at a young age, and the institution of slavery was deeply woven into the fabric of life at Mount Vernon. But here's the thing. As Washington grew older, his views on slavery began to evolve. He saw the hypocrisy, the inherent wrongness of it. In his will, Washington made provisions to free the enslaved people he directly owned upon the death of his wife, Martha. It was a complex and imperfect act, a reflection of the turbulent times he lived in. But it was a step, a glimmer of change in a system desperately in need of it. Washington's story reminds us that even our heroes are human, full of contradictions and evolving views. Next up, we've got Thomas Jefferson, the wordsmith, the architect, the dude who penned the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, those immortal words flowed straight from his quill. But Jefferson, like Washington, was a man of deep contradictions. He believed in freedom, in equality, yet he owned hundreds of enslaved people throughout his life. It's a moral puzzle, a head-scratcher for the ages. How could the man who wrote so eloquently about liberty reconcile that with the brutal reality of slavery? It's a question that historians still grapple with today. And then there's the story of Sally Hemings. She was one of Jefferson's enslaved people, and their relationship, well, it was complicated to say the least. For years, the whispers about their connection were dismissed as rumors. But DNA evidence later confirmed that Jefferson fathered at least 6 children with Hemings. It's a story of power, of exploitation, of a system that robbed people of their agency and their humanity. It's a dark side of Jefferson's legacy, a reminder that even the most brilliant minds can be flawed. But here's the thing about Jefferson, he was also a visionary. He believed in the power of education, in the importance of a well-informed citizenry. Now let's talk about Benjamin Franklin, the OG American innovator. We're talking about the guy who flew a kite in a thunderstorm. Don't try that at home, kids. Invented bifocals, and could charm the pants off anyone with his wit. But before he was a founding father, Franklin was a printer, a publisher, a man of science and ideas. He was a hustler, an entrepreneur, a true Renaissance man. Franklin's journey to revolution was a slow burn. He wasn't always gung-ho about independence. In fact, he spent years trying to make things work with Great Britain. He was all about diplomacy, about finding common ground, about, dare I say it. But as tensions with England escalated, Franklin found himself increasingly drawn to the cause of American independence. He saw the writing on the wall. The colonies were ready to fight for their freedom, and Franklin, ever the pragmatist, knew which side of history he wanted to be on. So, he packed his bags and set sail for France, becoming America's most charming and persuasive diplomat. He rocked the powdered wig, he cracked jokes with the French court, and he secured the crucial alliance that helped America win the war. But here's a little secret about old Ben Franklin. He was a bit of a ladies' man. Chapter 4. Now let me tell you about Alexander Hamilton, the scrappy orphan who came from nothing and became George Washington's right-hand man. This guy was all about ambition, about building a nation from the ground up. He was the architect of America's financial system, the champion of a strong central government, the original Secretary of the Treasury. He was writing financial policy before he could even legally rent a car. Hamilton, he was a force of nature, a whirlwind of ideas and energy. He believed in the power of government to shape a nation's destiny. He envisioned a United States that was a global powerhouse, a beacon of commerce and industry. He was hip-hop before hip-hop was hip-hop. But not everyone was down with Hamilton's vision. He clashed with Thomas Jefferson, who favored a more agrarian society and a less powerful federal government. Their rivalry was legendary. Think Biggie and Tupac, but with powdered wigs and quill pens. And speaking of clashes, let's talk about the duel that ended it all. Hamilton's rivalry with Aaron Burr, the sitting vice president, reached a boiling point. Insults were hurled, honor was challenged, and pistols were drawn. In a tragic turn of events, Burr shot Hamilton in Weehawken, New Jersey, cutting short the life of one of America's most brilliant minds. It was a senseless tragedy, a reminder of the fragility of life and the dangers of unchecked ambition. But even in death, Hamilton's legacy lived on. His ideas continued to shape the nation he helped create. Chapter 5. Let's not forget John Adams, the firecracker from Massachusetts. This guy was a bulldog for independence, a fierce debater who wouldn't back down from a fight. He was the lawyer who defended the British soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre, even though it was deeply unpopular. Why? Because he believed everyone deserved a fair trial, even his enemies. That's integrity, folks. Adams was a man of unwavering principles, even if those principles sometimes rubbed people the wrong way. He was known for his sharp tongue, his quick temper, and his unwavering belief in the righteousness of the American cause. He was like the human embodiment of a Liberty Bell, loud, passionate, and impossible to ignore. He and Benjamin Franklin were quite the pair, working tirelessly to persuade the Continental Congress to declare independence. They faced opposition, doubt, and even threats. But they never wavered. They were like the dynamic duo of diplomacy, using their wit and wisdom to win over hearts and minds. Now let's talk about Adams's relationship with Thomas Jefferson. They were like brothers from other mothers, fighting side by side for American independence. But their friendship was a roller coaster, full of ups and downs, agreements, and fiery disagreements. Chapter 6. Last but not least, we have James Madison, the quiet genius. This guy was the brains behind the operation, the architect of the Constitution, the man who believed in a government of laws, not of men. He was the OG champion of checks and balances, the dude who made sure no one person or branch of government could have too much power. Madison was a man of small stature, but a giant intellect. He was a deep thinker, a meticulous planner, a true believer in the power of reason and compromise. He spent months studying different forms of government, poring over history books and political philosophy, all to create a system that would stand the test of time. And speaking of standing the test of time, let's talk about the Bill of Rights. Madison was instrumental in drafting these first 10 amendments to the Constitution, ensuring that the fundamental rights of American citizens would be protected. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms. These core American values were enshrined in the Constitution thanks in large part to James Madison. But even Madison, the champion of liberty, couldn't escape the shadow of slavery. And there you have it, folks. The Founding Fathers, warts and all. They were brilliant, they were flawed, they were driven by a fierce desire to create a new kind of nation. They were also products of their time, wrestling with contradictions and grappling with issues that continue to resonate today. The Founding Fathers were not just the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. They were complex, flawed, and driven by deep personal convictions. Their legacies shaped America, but the untold stories of their lives show that even the heroes of history have hidden complexities. Next time you hear about George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, remember that their lives were filled with drama, contradictions, and the kind of human stories we often overlook in history books.